be here at Leicester Comedy Festival. I was actually originally booked to do a different gig called Cabaret of Filth, which is supposed to be a night of debauchery. And as you can tell maybe from my gloves that I'm wearing, that is what I'm going to be doing later tonight. And they have put on the blue light. But my policy with stand-up at the moment is I like to do something bespoke and unique for each time, so I never perform a set twice. So I've got my librarian's outfit on for you today. And I actually found out that I was doing this at 10 o'clock last night. So, to create something bespoke, I decided to dig up a short story that I wrote when I was 18 years old. I can see you're all really enthusiastic. I thought about asking if that was okay and kind of getting your permission, but then I'm already on the stage with the microphone, so I'll just go for it. I read this story to my mum earlier today, and I asked what she thought, and she said, yeah. So let's see how it goes. It is animal themed, so I feel like that's kind of in the general vibe of the night. So what I'm going to do is it also printed on my mum's old music sheet, so if you do get bored, you can try and decipher what that is. Okay, are you ready? Okay, cool. That was, yeah. Okay. Once upon a time, there were two little pigs. One called Oinky and the other called Squeaky. They lived together on a little farm called Riverdale Farm in a little village called Riverdale Village in a little country called England. They were very well behaved pigs, and the farmer was very happy with them. Oinky was an especially sweet creature, and he adored his dear brother Squeaky. He wanted to spend all his time with him playing countless games like Pin the Pigtail on the Pig, Musical Pigs, Pass the Pigs, Hide and Pig, Pig Juice, who really is a pig, and the occasional card game, in particular, Pig. Squeaky tolerated Oinky. One day, after an exceptionally strenuous game of Tig, aka Pig, Squeaky breathlessly collapsed in the shade created by the tree in the middle of their pig estate. This tree formed part of their current project for the land, which would hopefully make way for even grander plans in the future. They were uprooting it. They had successfully uprooted most of the vegetation in the surrounding area and were therefore confident in this new scheme which had been underway for 3 days now. Oinky trotted energetically up to Squeaky with that slight skip in his step that he thought made him seem all the more endearing. Squeaky thought it made him seem all the more like a twat. Come on, Squeaky, Oinky oinked. You can't be tired already. Why? That was only a stretch to get us going. Come on, get up. Don't be a bore. Squeaky grunted something about a sprained trotter and turned over onto his other side. His brother, unperturbed, nudged him with his snout and gleefully shouted, "Catch me if you can!" before he ran off screaming in the other direction. As he gathered pace, he allowed himself a glance behind to see if Squeaky was gaining on him at all. To his disappointment, while his brother had at least stood up, he was only doing so in order to urinate heavily on a nearby clump of weeds. Oinky frowned and was just about to turn around to go back, when suddenly he tripped and fell into some sort of orange mesh. Feeling slightly dazed, he made as if to get up, but tumbled over again as his back left leg seemed to be tangled up in this strange net which felt ominously familiar. He paused for a second as he tried to remember how to think. He squealed, thinking it proved more painful than he had imagined. He quickly resolved to not try it again. No good! Thinking had him trapped and was not about to let him go anytime soon. He cursed himself for being such an intelligent pig. Help me, Squeaky! My brother, help! Squeaky looked over and sighed. Not again, he thought. I suppose I better help the fool. He began to make his way towards the electrified hole, but then hesitated. Did they really have to save him? What was the rush? Squeaky swiftly considered 3 very important points. 1, there was a definite risk in it for him. I mean, what if he too became stuck in his efforts to free his idiotic sibling? He hadn't fallen into the fence or even got near it after the first time he touched it, why couldn't Oinky learn to do the same? 2. Double food portions. 3. He had not forgotten the incident of 2 days before our guardian being mysteriously broken stick from his carefully collected stick pile, his best stick. No, he concluded this was the only way his brother would learn. He couldn't rely on someone coming to the rescue every time something like this happened. So, at each click of the electric string which struck at regular intervals, Oinky continued to squeal and cry out to his brother. He squealed, cried out, squealed and cried out. And he just squealed, and squealed, and squealed, and squealed, and squealed, and then a small boy walked past with a dripping ice cream in his hand. He stopped to gape at the poor pig and licked his ice cream. Squeal, lick, squeal, lick, squeal, lick, squeal, plop. The boy had leant over to get a better look, but had inhaled an unexpected whiff of singed pork, which had caused him by surprise and caused him to drop his ice cream. He ran off in tears, leaving a very odd sight for the farmer to find when he returned home from the fields that evening and went to the sty to give the pigs their usual supper. Oinky was dead.
Oh.
While Squeaky eagerly licked off an odd kind of yellow blood from his brother's burnt corpse. Carefully timing his slugs with the unrelenting jerks of the shocked body. The farmer stood staring, stunned for a moment, before he headed into his house to fetch his shotgun. Pigs cannot live alone. Okay, that's the end of that choice. So that was from when I was 18. I then had a really serious brain injury last year, and I wrote another short story. Would you like a second short story? Or I can also just do and go do my exciting thing. would you, I don't know. Again, I am on stage. Would you like a second story? Yay! Okay. It's just one more. There's one to be done. Okay. All right. So this is from June last year. It's very different. There was once a man who needed some beans. No one knew why he wanted these beans, and no one dared to ask, because one time a boy asked him why he needed these beans, and the boy shriveled up into a tiny prune. You will not find out why the man needed these beans by the end of this story, so stop listening if you would be hurt by this. The man walked up and down the town, door to door, store to store. Beans, he'd say. Beans for me, please. Some people shook their heads and asked for forgiveness, and he would pray for the bean gods to strike them down if they were hiding any from him. Some would hand him a tiny cup of spare beans, or often a child's school satchel stuffed full of them if they'd had a plentiful week. But the man would simply lift each bean to the sun, or the nearest street light if the sun was busy elsewhere, and then drop each to the ground and say, "These are not my beans." Onwards he would go, backwards he would come, until the effort of the search brought him to his knees once every 32 hours, and he whispered softly, "Beans." Or sometime, before curling into a perfect sphere that glowed a gentle, sick-coloured green. He remained like this for a period of time, preparing so wildly that we won't even try to get into it. And then he would unravel like a toilet roll down the street. This was followed by the same walk as before, so let me know if you need me to read that section again for clarity. As time wore on and the man continued his beanie mission, the town grew accustomed to his presence and he simply became a helpful tool for small talk. That was until one day, a handsome man rode up on a beautiful brown horse, looking elegant in a way that served no purpose other than to please the listeners. "I'm here," he announced. "We can see that," replied a lady in a sour mood. Her haircut had not gone as planned, and she was trying to fix it herself, but only making it worse. The man continued. "For 10 years, I have crossed the land, discovering wonders, undoing treacheries, and having a lot of sex. And now I've returned to deal with a promise I made to a certain man full of all things you would not believe. Wait till you hear. It was about a few peas. And anyone who had been listening, intrigued to hear more about the sexual escapades, probably lost interest and turned away to continue pretending to make a dead fish talk or fiddle with their coat buttons, depending on their respective tasks for the day. Oh no, wait, he said, I meant beans. The whole town gasped, including those who had not heard what was said but wanted to fit in with everyone else. In her shop, the aforementioned lady cut off all her hair completely apart from 3 twists, which actually really suited her, and spoiler alert, she would wear her hair like this for the rest of her life. You know about the beans? Said 3 different men in harmonious unison. Well, I know about these particular beans. Bean, the crowd began mumbling over and over and turning their clothes inside out. I'll go get him, yelled the child who nobody trusted. On this occasion, the child disappointed them again, as was to be expected, by instead skipping out of town on a passing cart full of goats. The crowd resorted to wordlessly nudging the man on his horse by standing behind and jabbing their shoulders forward until he was halfway down the street. Ahead of them, the bean man was traipsing along his usual route, finding all the wrong beans. Oh, hey there! There he is! The very chap I was searching for! Now I understand all the nudging, which was fortunate timing as I was on the verge of slaughtering you all, said the man. The people around him politely scattered just far enough to still watch everyone. The bee man turned and exclaimed, It's you! He took a deep breath, using all the air he'd sequestered in the bottom of his lungs for such a day, said, Beans! The sound of it reverberated uncomfortably through everyone's loins, causing a number of blushes. The handsome horseman smiled. 10 years ago, in this very town, I made a promise to you that I would find you the beans you needed, to undo the curse placed upon you by a rude witch with too much time in her hands, to turn you into the dullest man alive. I lied at the start about not finding out the reason. It's true. He is very dull. Yes, very dull, must all the very dull townsfolk. I find him interesting, squeaked the dear little woman with no friends. To which everyone pinched her, till she scrunched up her face in apology, as was tradition. I have returned to tell you, continued the man, that all my travels, during which I must admit I did waste a lot of time, I was repeatedly informed on good authority such beans do not exist, and have never existed, and it is in fact a well-known prank, spread by a bunch of rowdy lads who know how to have a good time. Upon this news, everyone turned to face the bean man, creating a small gust of wind that would have a knock-on effect to the weather of the next town over the coming week, ruining several weddings. The bean man stood blankly, and he closed his eyes and softly said, No beans. It was as though a burden had been lifted from his shoulders. He would be dull. There was nothing to be done about it. It was time to embrace the dull and be released from his mission. He sat on the ground and was so dull that the crowd dispersed, including the man on his horse who galloped off for more adventures and sex, sometimes both. All except the dear little woman with her face still scrunched. As she felt her pinching compatriots exit, she blinked her eyes open and saw that the bean man was all alone, but carrying a newfound sense of peace that drew her in. She went and sat on the ground beside him. He looked at her and said, I have nothing of interest to say. What a relief. Neither do I, she replied. And they sat there together until it was too cold and weird, and went back to her house to casually hang out and possibly fuck. Analysis. We're all going to write a little essay on it. My name is Susie Grumble, so you can message me your essay on Instagram. Okay, thank you.
We've all been on a journey though. I was seeing people sort of leaning forwards to that. I've got to say the bit when Oinky died. There was a lot of people just grabbed people. How did you feel about that, sir? I was upset, we were a little bit upset about Oinky, but it's okay. It's okay. How's everybody doing apart from that? Really good. Do you get that in Argentina? Yes. You do get that in Argentina? Exactly that. Is that an Argentinian comedy night? Yes, yes, we hear about kids being killed slowly.